Hi everyone, welcome back. This week in Level F, we're going to be covering lessons 93 through 96. You will need worksheets 74 through 77A or B, the practice sheets 8 and 9, the math journal, which of course is found at the back of the workbook, the math card games book, and your fraction and basic number cards decks. All right, in lesson 93, we will be subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. The warm-ups are on practice sheet 8, and those involve addition with unlike denominators. So we're moving on from addition with unlike denominators to subtraction with unlike denominators. Let's look at the first two questions.
So please remember, what I am showing you here is what you will show your child if they did not get the answer correct. It is very important that the child gets an attempt at solving the problem before you start showing them how to do it. So we'll start off with 7/12 minus 1/2. Notice that the denominators are not alike. And we'll ask the child to solve this problem any way that they can, okay? And to share the solution. So assuming that we have to go back over this, or maybe you thought that your child didn't use the most efficient method, we can go ahead and show them how we would solve this problem. So first you need to find a common denominator. And how could you find that? Well, you can see that 2, if you start listing off the multiples, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 2 is a multiple of 12. So the common denominator is going to be 12. So we have 7/12 minus, what is the equivalent fraction of 1/2 when it has the denominator of 12? Well, that would have a numerator of 6 because 6/12 is the same as 1/2. And then we can simply proceed to subtract. 7 minus 6 is 1. The denominators stay the same. So your child may have chosen 24 instead of 12 because for them, they like to multiply the denominator and find out what the common denominator is. So if they did that, this would be 14/24 minus 12/24. And that, of course, is 2/24. And when that's simplified, that's 1/12. So we still get the same answer. It's a little bit more convoluted, but there's nothing wrong with this. So if your child chose to just multiply the denominators to find the common one, that is perfectly acceptable. Okay, let's go ahead and look at subtracting mixed numbers. So the next example says 5 5/8 minus 1 3/4. Remember to have your child try to solve this first and ask you if they have any questions, okay? So how could we solve this? Well, one way would be to convert 3/4 into 6/8, because then they have a common denominator. So it would be 5 5/8 minus 1 6/8. 5 minus 1 is 4. So that would be 4 5/8 minus 6/8. So we can see that we're going to have to borrow from the 4 to get enough of the fraction to subtract. So that would become 3, and 8 plus 5 is 13. So we needed 8/8 for the 1 that we took from here, plus 5 equals 13/8 minus 6/8. And that would be 3 7/8. There are, of course, other ways to solve this problem. And if you recall, we went over those possible ways, at least 4 of those methods, in lesson 90. On worksheet 74, you may want to go back and look at the video for lesson 90. This is where I discussed the 4 methods of subtracting fractions. I'll go over the first method again because it tends to cause the most confusion. The missing addend method is used for this problem. So this is what the problem looks like on the worksheet. It's 4 2/3 minus 2 3/4. And the missing addend method wants to go from 2 3/4 up to 4 2/3 to find the answer. So in this case, 2 3/4 plus 1/4 would bring us up to 3. Okay. And then we'd have to add another one for 4, and of course the 2/3 for 4 2/3. So 1/4 plus 1 2/3 is going to give us our answer, but we need to find the common denominators. We already know it's going to be 12. That is actually on the worksheet. The only thing your children have to figure out is what goes in this box. So 1/4, well, 4 goes into 12 3 times. So if I multiply 4 times 3, I get 12. So I have to multiply 1 times 3 and get 3. And then here, 2/3, 3 goes into 12 4 times. So I'm multiplying 2 by 4 and I get 8. So my answer is 11. So 3 plus 8 is 11/12. And let's not forget the 1 here. So my answer is 1 11/12. Of course, this answer is already on the worksheet. So really the only two things that your child needed to fill in were these two numbers. But it helps to go through the process and see what did they do. Because otherwise, your kids are going to look at this problem and go, what? Where did the 1/4 come from? And why does it say 1 2/3 and not 4 2/3? So just go through the process if they're not catching on that this is what you do. You add the 1/4 to 3/4 to make 3. You add 1 to the 3 to make 4. And then you add 2/3 to make 4 2/3. Then we have to find the common denominator and of course find what the numerators are. Then we can solve the problem.
Okay, so after your child completes that worksheet, ask the in conclusion questions, and you may play Fraction Addition War, which is F32 in the Math Card Games book. For lesson 93, we have a correction to the worksheets. So if your book was printed before April 18th of 2018, go ahead to the link in the description to find the correction. The 3 warm-up questions are on practice sheet 9. And in this lesson, we will add and subtract 3 fractions with unlike denominators. The only tricky part with these fraction problems is that they have 3 fractions. So the common denominator must be common amongst all 3. So let's take a look at how we would find that.
Okay, so if we start off with that first sample problem, 2/3 plus 1/2 plus 3/4. Now, as I had said before, you want your child to attempt this problem on their own and come up with a solution. What is the first thing that your child is going to have to do? Find a common denominator. So one way to do that would be to say, okay, 2 and 4, the common denominator would be 4. And then the common denominator between 4 and 3 would be 12, which is also obviously a multiple of 2. So if we make each of these 12, 3 goes into 12 4 times, so 4 times 2 is 8. 2 goes into 12 6 times, 6 times 1 is 6. 4 goes into 12 3 times, 3 times 3 is 9. And then we simply add. So this would be 15, another 5 would be 23, 23/12. And 23/12 can simplify to 1 11/12. 12 goes into 23 one time, there's 11 left over. So here's our answer. So another way they could have done it is said, okay, so 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 and 4 share the denominator of 12, or 3 times 2 is 6, 6 times 4 is 24, and then they would just have to reduce more. So the answer would have been 24 as the denominator and 46 as the numerator. Then they could simplify. 24 goes into 46 one time, and then there would be 11/12 left over. I skipped a step there. It would have been 22/24. So we'll just write that 22/24, and that would reduce to 1 11/12.
Okay, so after the worksheet, play fraction subtraction game, which is F33 in the math card games book, and ask the in conclusion questions. I do have a comment about the game. In the instructions, they talk about the remainder. And I think for most of us, when we think of remainder, we think only of division. But in this game, when it says to make the remainders, it means to make the difference. All right, so in lesson 95, we're going to be solving some more adding and subtracting fraction problems. The warm-ups are on practice sheet 9. Let's take a look at one of the problems from worksheet 76.
Okay, so we're going to be looking at problem number 2 on worksheet 76. Here's the figure. It's a triangle. We have this side 9 and 1/6 feet. We have this side 8 and 11/12 feet. And we know what the perimeter is, but we're trying to find out what this side is. So one easy way to solve this problem would be to add up the two sides and subtract it from the perimeter. This is one of the solutions. There are other possible ones. So please let your child try it before you introduce some of these possibilities. So we would say 9 and 1/6 plus 8 and 11/12 equals what? Of course, we have to find the common denominator. So this would be 9 and something twelfths. How many times does 6 go into 12? Twice. So 2 times 1 is 2, plus 8 and 11/12. That gives us an answer of 13/12 over here, and this would be 17. However, this is more than 1. So 17 and 13/12 is really 18 and 1/12. Now we need to subtract that from the 26 and 1/4. So 26 and 1/4 minus 18 and 1/12 equals what? That's going to be our x. Okay, once again, we find the common denominator. This is 26 and 12 is going to be the common denominator. 3 times 4 is 12, so 3 times 1 is 3, minus 18 and 1/12. And therefore our fraction is 2/12, which we'll deal with in just a second. And 26 minus 18 is 8. So we have 8 and 2/12, which can be simplified to 8 and 1/6. So x is 8 and 1/6 feet.
Okay, once the worksheet is done, go ahead and play the fraction subtraction game, F33 again, and then ask the in conclusion questions. For lesson 96, this is a review and game day. So ask the oral questions on the review sheet and have the child complete the review sheet on his or her own. After your child corrects any mistakes, play the fraction subtraction game again. Here are the lessons that you can review if your child has missed any of the questions. Remember, if they can find their mistake and fix it, you most likely don't need to go over these lessons. You can be the judge as to whether or not you need to go back and review. All right, if your child missed the oral questions, let's look at the first one. If they missed the first one, we're going to review lesson 4, the second one, lesson 3, and the third one, lessons 20 and 21. For the write the answers question, review lesson 58. For the second one, review lesson 85. And for the third one, review lesson 15. In the do the calculations section, the addition problem, you can review lesson 26. The subtraction problem, review lesson 27. The multiplication problem, review lesson 33. And the division problem, review lesson 49. For the match these fractions section, review lessons 85 and 88. For the true and false questions, these answers are sprinkled throughout the whole fractions section. So those are lessons 81 through 95. Then the add or subtract fractions is reviewing lesson 94. All right, and for the last one, the solve the problem, this is the perimeter problem, review lesson 95. And even though the solution in your book involves multiplying the fractions, your child can go ahead and add that mixed number 5 times. That is completely acceptable. Okay, that's all for this week, and I'll see you next time. I hope you have a good week. Bye-bye.